This segment of Deer and Deer Hunting TV is brought to you by Stealth Pro Series compact drills from Great Plains. The hunt starts here.
Share trail camera images. A little bit of easy exchange, a little bit of sharing, and then once you get that going, hopefully things will open up and their management will begin to work the same with your management.
How do you go about approaching the neighbors? Here's some advice. You probably should have done that before you laid any money down. Because what I see more and more often today is people going in with fantasies of what reality is going to be, and it's usually the opposite. You just acquired a new deer hunting property, whether you bought it, leased it, or got permission to hunt it. How do you go about approaching the neighbors? Here's some advice. You probably should have done that before you laid any money down. Because what I see more and more often today is people going in with fantasies of what reality is going to be, and it's usually the opposite.
Well, one of the first things I would do is I would drive around the neighborhood and try to get a feeling of what's going on. What else is going on around this property that I want to develop and create into a great whitetail hunting property? So make notes. Is there people actually doing some wildlife and habitat management on their land? Is some land just being used strictly for farming? Is some land being used strictly for agriculture? Is some just open ground that really has, no attraction to whitetails whatsoever? So once you have that inventory and you begin to get a feel of what's going on there, the next step you should do is try to approach those people who look like, hey, they're like-minded like you.
Don't send emails, don't send texts, don't send letters. Get out there and actually talk to the people that you're going to be next to. And hopefully you're genuine. Because people, especially who live on the property, if you don't live on the property that you bought and there's other people there that have already established a community of neighbors, you're going to be the odd person out no matter what. Especially if you come in there with an iron fist and think that you're going to rule or dictate, what's going to happen. You can do that on your property. You can say, this is what I'm going to shoot on my property. This is what I want to manage for my property. What happens now when deer are being shot on your property or neighbors' properties and they're crossing fence lines? It's really easy, like I say, to sit back and pretend you're king. And just because you plunk down hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, on a hunting property, that you're going to have your way with it.
The best thing to do is befriend them and to try to work out a relationship where you're not just in their face telling them stuff. You want to let your ideas kind of flow freely to them, but not in a pointed exchange where you're saying, you're wrong, I'm right.
Up next, Dan and Mark break down the key do's and don'ts of building strong relationships with new neighbors, a crucial step when managing a new hunting property. You're watching Deer and Deer Hunting TV. Now that we've covered some of the best ways to introduce yourself and start off on the right foot, it's time to talk about what not to do. A few missteps early on can turn your exciting new land purchase into a never-ending headache.
Some of the things you shouldn't do if you want a healthy relationship with your neighbors. Number one, don't go plaster no trespassing signs every 50 yards along the property line without even first contacting the neighbors. Big red flag there. And that's going to create confrontation. The other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to put stands right on property lines. And when we talk about right on property lines, it doesn't have to be right on the property line. It could be within 50 yards. Or it could be like, a tower blind looking at somebody's living room window. You do that, you're immediately going to rub the neighbors the wrong way.
Now, one thing I always suggest is sharing resources. Say they do have some land that could be farmed for a food plot, but they may not have the tractor or planter and you do or have access to one. Hey neighbor, I'll help you get your food plot in. I've got the resources here. You just buy the seed. I'm willing to help. That's going to help all of us together. One of the things you should also do is share trail camera images, because hey, your deer are going to show up on their property, their deer are going to show up on your property. You guys might as well be trying to determine why, who, what, where, and when is going on with these deer. Things like that, a little bit of easy exchange, a little bit of sharing, and then once you get that going, hopefully things will open up and their management will begin to work the same with your management.
I have several neighbors that, you know, if they haven't shot a deer, absolutely go sit in my stand. I don't care, shoot whatever you want. That's the type of neighbor that I want. How do you get that? That's years of work with somebody. Now you could either live next to those people, like I said, or they could just be people that you know. And we've had that on out-of-state hunts, where we've gone to the same places year after year, and we got to know the neighbors. And the biggest thing was respect.
Is that your 45-pound draw bow?
No, this is my other one. This is 54 pounds.
And then the camaraderie that goes with that. It's no different than getting involved in your town or your city as far as helping out at the Lions Club or something like that. The more you help people, the more friends you build and the better relationships you have. And that parallels perfectly to hunting land.
Each season, Dan looks forward to hunting in his home state of Wisconsin. This fall, he's exploring a newly acquired lease. With limited time to scout and a lot still unknown, he's heading into the season with an open mind and tempered expectations.
All right, here we go. Just give me something older than a yearling. That's all I want. I'm not picky today. I'll even take a doe, but I want a buck. We are going to our lease, and we've been getting, the reason why we're leaving now, it's like, what is it, 10:30? We're leaving now because most of that deer activity has been late morning into the afternoon, and I can't handle a 11-hour sit. Sorry, just can't do it. So we're going to go into a transition area where there is a thick bedding area in the swamp. They're cutting through this flat. It's kind of like an oak flat, and they've been scent checking it for does, and there's been buck after buck on the Cuddy back, the Cuddy Link camera photos for the past 2 days. So this is the first sit in this spot. Good luck.
So the Wisconsin archery season for me was so enjoyable. We got to start early on a brand new property that we acquired, and my goodness, what a beautiful blank slate this was, but it required some work. We had to get in there, we had to cut some trails, some shooting lanes, some access points, some really thick cover. I'm talking Japanese barberry like I've never seen before, an invasive prickly species that's almost impenetrable for a person to walk through. So we did a lot of work there. We brought in our Banks blind on a Keen trailer. We had a great setup there. We had some other permanent blinds that were already on the property that were good backups. But you know, I was feeling really good about this, but those first couple early season sits, even though they were enjoyable, they weren't successful. But I ran out of time in the early season. I had to go on some out-of-state hunts. My goodness, I had a fabulous season across the country once again, which brought me to early November to when I could finally get out there for the archery season once again. It was one of those special mornings where it's so cold, you can hear everything, every little snap, every little crunch. It doesn't take long and we start seeing deer. here comes a buck, a pretty nice buck. And to be honest, I would have been very happy to take this buck. He stops at about 60 yards. I grunt at him. He looks at me a couple times, kind of interested, but he's on a beeline. He doesn't see any other buck there, so he just keeps going. It almost comes to the point of a depressional letdown in the fact that, you know, you start talking to yourself, oh, that's the only buck I'm going to see, and I'm not going to see anything else, and bam, a little bit of a flicker right out the window right in front of me. Put up the right-ins, looking. Deer, yes. Antlers, oh my goodness. Nice buck, here he comes. Man. The buck comes through, I bleat, he stops, he puts his head up, and just like that, boom, the arrow is on its way. I was off by a little bit, but my goodness, did that bolt and that broadhead do some damage. Another successful Wisconsin archery season in the books. I could not be more happy. Hey, it's food plot planning time, and if you're like me, you don't have a ton of time to do this. It's early July, not ideal to do this. Normally it would be better to be first week of August here in the upper Midwest, but this is what we have to deal with. We have a nice, I'm gonna call it a kill plot, but it's almost a 1/4 of an acre, and a lot of shade, and we could be dealing with a drought situation later. In those situations, a lot of times people like to plant clover, which is a great choice. It's shade resistant, it's drought resistant, and it's a good pick for whitetails. But I've chosen to go with this blend instead because it's got 4 forages in there that are all gonna be working similar to the way clover would, but better in the fact that I have a higher chance of success. We have chicory, we have plantain, we have alfalfa, and we have small burnet, which I'm gonna call probably the sleeper in this mix. Small burnet is high in calcium, high in protein, and deer absolutely love it in this area. So if you can find that, it's awesome. If you look at the inert and the weed contents, it's minuscule, it's barely anything. And if you try to mix your own, you're gonna get a higher percentage of that. Also, you're not gonna get the right mix. So what we're gonna do here, we had a lot of rain here recently. We had this soil kind of prepared already, but it's compacted a little bit. With these smaller seeds, what I'm gonna do, just gonna get that little bit aeration in this soil, and that's what we're gonna do with this drag. Don't have a lot of fancy equipment, and this is what we have to work with. So I'm gonna get the seed in there. It's gonna allow the seed to get onto the top of the ground. Now you could come in there with a cultipacker. That would be ideal. You can come in there with a roller, even better, to get that seed nice contact with the soil, or we could just drag again. That's what we're gonna do. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna drag the field first, we're gonna seed it, and then we're gonna drag it again, probably do some crisscrossing to get good seed to soil contact, and then just a little bit more rain, and we're gonna have this food plot ready to go. Goes to show that you do not have to sacrifice on quality if you're pinched for time and you have to do it early. Quality product like Rack Fuel Showtime, drought resistant, shade resistant, it's gonna grow even though I'm putting this in a few weeks early.
So it's crossbow season. What are some things you can do to increase your odds of success? Number one, learn to shoot with your offhand. If you're a righty, learn to shoot with your left. If you're a lefty, learn to shoot with your right. And that's going to increase your odds of getting a shot opportunity. Because let's face it, it's hard to turn to your offside, whatever that is. You're always going to be able to turn to your strong side much easier than you can turn to your weak side. So you have to think about that, and then, like I said, learn to shoot with your offhand. That's going to increase your range that you can take a shot on a particular deer. And I will tell you from experience, it's much easier to learn to shoot a crossbow with your offhand than it is with a compound bow, a traditional bow, or in my opinion, even with a firearm. Next, set your hunting spots up, whether that be a tree stand or a hunting blind, to be crossbow specific. Use bow hangers that are made for crossbows, not compound bows. Think about trimming away any sticks or twigs or limbs that are going to get in the way of these limbs, because even though we don't have the huge profiles of crossbows that we used to have, these still do move a little bit. They come out, and you don't want to be smacking that limb on an obstruction that's going to throw your shot off or even make the situation potentially dangerous. Practice scenarios. Think about the past where you've been in situations where you did not capitalize because you screwed something up. Think about hunts that you've been on and you wish you would have done something differently to have a different outcome. Or even think about potential scenarios you might find yourself in that you want to gain experience with. These are excellent things to do to give you that muscle memory you need, to give you the skills and the knowledge that you need to know how to perform in specific hunting situations. And let's face it, deer hunting is very situational. It requires situational tactics to be effective and successful.
Got him. Watch him.
He's dead right there.